G'day listeners, welcome back to another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. I'm always excited when I get the dream team together. Got Damien in the house, got Bernadette, got Nate. G'day team, how we doing?
Great, thanks,
Good, thank
Aaron.
you. Good day.
Hey, Aaron. Good, thanks.
Nate, love when we get together because I know that we kind of we'll divide and conquer when we're in the trenches with working with clients and what we're seeing on a day-to-day basis. But what we're talking about today is I've brought this up with a number of clients and I feel like it's resonated. So I feel like I want to take this out to everyone that's listening, which is what I call property equity versus sweat equity. Now, I'll give you a bit of context here. Sweat equity is what I coin people that are working for their dollars. So whether you're self-employed, and what that means is you then got to go out there and kind of make a buck. And what I mean by that is the profit that you're banking from your business, or if you're salaried, how long it takes you to earn that money. So sweat equity is what you do on a day-to-day basis to earn a dollar versus property equity, which is what you've bought your property and now it's got valued at something in the future. And time again, we've been doing this, Atelier Wealth is 8 years and we've got to see portfolios that have grown, evolved and increased over that time. And I'm just constantly blown away by people that come back to us 2-3 years later when talking about hundreds of $1,000s worth of equity that they look at it going, yeah, I didn't do much. I'm like, yeah, mate, you bought property and 2 years later it's worth a fair amount more. You know, take out the COVID anomaly from that and you just go generally when people are buying good properties. You know, we do our annual reviews and we do the CoreLogic property reports and year on year again, these increases. We've got, mate, you got equity, let's go again. And then we look at the increases in their income. It's like, it hasn't really gone up by too much. Like the properties are shot up in value, but the incomes are going, it's a marginal increase, maybe 3, 5, 6%. And it's like, that's dwarfed in comparison to what their property has gone up by. And I'm like, look, just keep buying more property. Like this thing's increasing in value and the property equity is increasing. So for me, I really want to blow this open a little bit to really challenge listeners that if you're on a fixed income, to use that income to go and buy income producing assets, which is investment properties. And then off the back of that, if you want to have your toys, for example, cars, that's what the income producing assets will then give you the ability to go and buy toys versus what the masses will do is they'll use their income to then fund a lifestyle and then whatever's left over, they'll try and invest. And time again, I just say it's the wrong formula. If the herd's doing that, you got to think differently as well. And that's kind of what we stand for here, which is to do what everyone else isn't willing to do. So for me, what I wanted to do is just for the context for our team is we're going to put our money where our mouth is. We're going to talk about the properties that were bought. And Nate, you want to say congratulations to you, buddy, for joining the Property Owners Club. We've got a bit of a round of applause for
Congrats.
Well done. I feel like you've walked 2 inches taller. I mean, how tall are you? 6'3"?
Yeah.
6'4", and you're walking 2 inches taller, mate, after buying property. But just wanted to kind of share with us how that went the first time around and what you learned going through the process as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty chill. Working in the industry, doing this every day, right? I knew the process inside out. Definitely learned a lot more, and it was good now that I can speak to that to a lot of clients, having done the process myself. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really feel any different. I'm not that materialistic or anything like that, so I just did it. Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Because you're for those who don't know, Nate's a gun mortgage broker. He's a absolute weapon in terms of numbers, credit policy. What surprised you about this process that you didn't expect, like buying your first property, first investment?
I mean, I wasn't there was no surprises.
Nothing? I mean,
no, not really, except for just a little hiccup at settlement on the day of settlement because, guarantor loans tend to go off the rails a lot of the time, not because of our sloppy processes, but sometimes with the banks, not naming any banks. But yeah, no, there was nothing really. I have a good mortgage broker myself, and that's Damien. So he helped me out a lot of the way too. So yeah, no, I don't want it to sound, I don't know, arrogant or anything, but no, there was no real surprises.
And I think maybe to jump in there and talk to it a little bit, it is possibly because you were surrounded by a solid team.
Yes,
you had
I
a dream
concur.
team of, an Atelier Wealth broker,
yeah,
a wonderful buyer's agent. I think that really you prepped well and they prepped you well. And then did you use a conveyancer?
Yeah, the conveyancers that they recommended as well, or they put me in contact with the property managers as well. So it's been really seamless. Very good, very good.
I mean, a good turnkey team really helps. You don't have to think too much as well. But I say, especially to the four of us, the property market rewards action takers and decision makers, and you've seen it for long enough. You saw clients doing well. naturally I could, we can lead you to the water, but you've actually got to pull the trigger yourself, man, and decide, look, I actually this is something I want to do for myself. I think, we've had chats in the past like, hey, man, is this something that's on your radar? And there must have been some penny drop moment where you're like, one, I actually can do it. Two, I actually want to do it. And then three, going through and completing it. And now you go, I think you're onto your second purchase, and we'll close out 2024 with you at start of the year. No properties, end of the year, 2 properties. That's a bloody awesome achievement as far as I'm concerned, right?
Definitely. And it's a lot of, I'm preaching every day to clients to get in the market and purchase. And I wasn't doing that myself. So I had to get in there.
Yeah.
Just so I'm not a hypocrite, but also because it's the right thing to do, right? What we're talking about now, getting that equity, building that up.
Yeah, correct. So let's start with your purchase. You're happy to talk numbers? So let's talk numbers.
Sure thing.
Purchase price?
506,000.
506. And we said before this morning, just give me a quick estimate on what you think that's worth today.
Yeah, I ran a valuation with the bank I purchased with. That's come back at 523, just over 30 days from settlement. So it's gone up 17K, about 3.5%. Growth. So, I mean, you annualize that 17K in a month, that's about 200K in a year.
Yeah, so if you shot for annual growth on that, you're talking about earning 200 grand by doing nothing on that. No, I say nothing, taking some action and make your repayments. But ultimately, you could be the beneficiary of 2 years of median income, because the median income sits around circa 100K. What would take an average income earner 2 years to earn you that potentially in a year's time?
Yeah.
I just want to let that sink in. If you're listening and going, right, is there a better billboard for investing in property? That's what it is. Like, you can think about how hard it's going to take you to earn 100K if you're on a median income versus buy an investment property, and it's done that. And I can say that's exactly our number. Sitting with Bernie, we bought a property in Perth that was bought, I think, in February, March, settled, revalued. I think it was June, July. So you take that, so 3-4 months later, there's a 100K uplift. And I said to Bernie, like, that's the easiest 100K that we've earned in 3 months, right? That's insane. Again, median income for Australia earned in 3 months through equity uplift. I'm like, right, we've got to keep doing a bit more of this, for example. And to me, it's turning what we do from a day-to-day basis. So our incomes have then enabled us to then go and buy a property. The property then compounding, doing heavy lifting. And that means I can supplement my income with an asset that's doing some incredibly heavy lifting as well. So I don't have to bust my chops, sweat equity. I'm relying on property equity as well.
And if I could go back to maybe the sweat equity part just for a little bit, Aaron, I think you mentioned, an average, depending on salary increases, 3%, 4%, 5% for your work if you're employed.
When you're salaried, it's also like what they're willing. You don't get any say in that. It's effectively what your employer tells you you're getting.
Absolutely.
I hate that.
I know. And also something for me is something I noticed pre and post-COVID was, pre-COVID, also before COVID, I would jump online, I would work, get back to clients, and often people wouldn't reply until the morning, rightfully so, until they were back online in front of their computers. And I think post-COVID, a behavior I have seen is when I send an email out at nighttime, I often get responses back from clients because they are still working.
Absolutely.
They're in front of their laptop. So even though you're working the same, that sweat equity in terms of, your salary, which is locked in, you're actually working more hours.
Yeah.
And this is a behavior shift we've seen sort of post-COVID, not for all, but for some.
Oh, absolutely. And the way to get ahead is to work harder. So you're going to, more sweat equity goes into it. You think about your hourly rate. The more hours you work, your hourly rate actually drops down as well. So, I might sound a bit, what's the word? I might sound a bit rich as a business owner, but mate, I still get paid a salary from a business. I do know my worth, but I've been salaried, and sometimes the only way to get ahead is to work harder, longer than other people.
And hope for a promotion.
Hope. And hope's not a strategy as far as we're concerned here as either.
And I mean, the numbers like supporting this are there. So if you look at like WPI, so wage price index, over the last 30 years, wages have grown for average around 3%, 3.12%.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Houses grow at 6% at the moment over the last 30 years. So you are getting a lot more bang for your buck just on your return with leverage, but also just based on the percentages as well.
Yeah.
3% difference. So
3%. And then, I mean, you talk about wages, house price at 6%. But when we talk about a cost of living crisis, it's like you're actually negative. Your net income, you're actually worse off from where you were 1 or 2 years ago.
Big time.
Because everything across the board, whether it's fuel, whether it's travel, whether it's food, for example, all of the above has increased well over 3% year on year. I mean, there's probably a reason why we're drinking less because a beer at a local is like $15 now, right? And like, you want to curb alcohol intake, just raise the rate, raise the price on that as well. So to me, one of the big conversations, and I guess we're fortunate that we do with some clients that have some really strong incomes, across the Eastern Seaboard. I'd say probably a lot of our clients are circa 150, 200K. Naturally, we've got clients that are below that. But I say to them, your income's at say 200K plus, you may feel bulletproof, but you're actually one of the most vulnerable as far as I'm concerned. I want to give this context as well. You're earning an income, say 250, that means you're generally in a management role or leadership role. All it takes is for an organizational restructure. It takes a change of a CEO, a flick of a pen, and you find yourself on the end of a redundancy. I've seen this time and time again. I've been in there in a corporate role, not that I was on that type of dollars at that time when I was younger. And it's easy when you're younger. And I didn't have the commitment of a mortgage, for example, and I was on maybe 70, 80K. It's easy to find a job at that stage. Easy, you just bounce into a new role.
It's easy to spend your money as well. Should we bring up some of Aaron's purchases?
I've been very open. On that income, I spent like I was earning 200. I had a black convertible. I was renting in the city. I would go out most Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights and, drinks from me. I spent like I was earning 200K. My clothes were from, designer brands.
Tailored, everything.
Mate, the watches. I look back, I'm like, it's honestly like, it's the trappings of corporate. And again, that's something that we see, which is, when you're in corporate, and you're earning those type of dollars, you got to holiday at nice destinations.
Well, you're surrounded by people who are doing that. So you're the average of the people you hang around with the most. And what do you do most of your time? You work. So if you're in that environment, you're surrounded by people who are taking those lavish holidays, getting their clothes tailored, going to buying designer, I guess, brands.
Yeah, driving a nice car. The private schools become a thing. Suddenly you start to keep up with all of that. Yeah.
So for people who are thinking, oh God, that's me, I'm surrounded by people I don't want to be like, what could those listeners do to surround themselves with good role models, like good money role models? Like who would you recommend for the listeners to tap into, tune into, podcasts, books, movies? I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I think just becoming conscious of it is the first thing you can do, because sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. Yeah. Money mentors. I say this all the time. If you're starting the Barefoot Investor, just start there.
Yeah.
He sold that many books for a reason. Very straight to the point, very simple, easy to understand. That's the first place. Get an understanding of what spending is and that you're doing too much of it, and then start to look at how you can budget and just move on from there.
Yeah, I'd say Dave Ramsey sits up there for me personally. I mean, granted, it's a lot of American context, but the behaviors are still the same. Credit card debts, car leases, living expenses, digging your head in the sand. It doesn't matter where you're based in the world, the behaviors and the patterns are still absolutely the same. So from my perspective, I'm like, take out the US dollar, the equivalent, and just go, mate, this sounds like a lot of Australians that we know on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, you're right. Scotty Pate, Barefoot Investor, Dave Ramsey, I think are good places to start. Like Damien said, build a consciousness or awareness around it. I mean, Bernie and I, we've taken a family holiday, right? Our incomes are higher than what they used to be, but I feel like as we get on in life, our holidays are more modest than what they used to be. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What we truly value is the time that we're spending, not the destination that we're trying to get to. It's not expensive hotels, for example. We want to spend the time together as a family. And I think you got to buck the trend and you got to be willing to say, look, if I was in corporate, there's no way we would have taken that holiday. It would have been an overseas holiday. We tried it. Overseas holidays, stay at these nice destinations. It's almost a little bit humble bragging. Whereas when you run your own race, it's like you're not doing anything that you don't want to do. It's like, I'm choosing this because you're putting yourself high on the priority list, not impressing others as well.
I think that's it. You run your own race and you've got to decide what you want.
Yeah.
You might want all that stuff. Great. That's perfect.
Yeah.
But you might not realize that
there's a
you're
price
actually
tag attached to it,
diminishing
Damien, though.
people. Yeah.
There's a price tag attached to it. I mean, we've got clients, and again, I certainly don't want to be facetious here, but we've got clients that have multiple investment properties, like decent portfolios. I don't think it's come diminishing returns around happiness, though, as well. And I'm like, where is the sweet spot for happiness and satisfaction and financial rewards and security? Yeah. So for me, I'm like, you need a portfolio that's one's going to give you the lifestyle that you need, one that you can afford. I think the other part to me is like, yeah, run your own. Don't compare your portfolio to someone else's. You don't know what they're being given in life as well.
You don't know where they started from. You don't know what they're earning. Like online, it's very easy to see, oh, he's 30 years old. He's got 10 properties.
Yeah.
You don't know how that came about.
Correct.
Show me your pay slip.
Yeah, that's it.
And then I'll compare myself to you.
Yeah. And I guess as we talk, we are in an extremely, incredibly fortunate position that we get to see under the hood of everyone. So we have a non-judgmental attitude here. We don't care. No judgments. We've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, the incredibly wealthy as well. At the end of the day, every client's treated the same. We don't put any judgment on their scenario. We're trying to help. And the whole point of this episode is if you're stuck in this kind of rock and a hard place and go, how do I break through? I want to go back to the very start of what we're talking about, which is you can work incredibly hard for your money, but is your money working incredibly hard for you? And if it's not, we need to have a chat.
Yep. So going on to, I guess, my example.
Yeah, let's go for it. Yeah.
Because we settled in January 2024. It's October 2024.
Yeah.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah.
And since then, I did a valuation this morning, $90,000 uplift in the value of the property, which was, I think, about 8% increase.
So it's almost a conservative estimate, right? So you think about 90 grand, what's that? 8 months?
Yep. Or 10 months. Let's say 10 months. It's probably about
9 grand
annually.
Yeah. Yep. Could you guys have saved? I mean, you guys combined incomes, you're doing okay, but to save 9 grand while the property market, was outperforming you guys,
I don't think so. Not when we're unless we were living with our in-laws and my parents, like we were before we bought. If we were renting,
you weren't saving that.
No way.
Yeah,
no.
And you think about how hard you'd have to work to save that 9 grand a month. Now you're not renting. You're in your own home, you're paying the mortgage off, you got security, you got stability, for example. There's a whole level of happiness that I've seen from you guys by having somewhere to call home, and the property's done 90 grand in 10 months. I can't emphasize this enough. How hard you both would have had to work to save up 90 grand or even earn 90 grand in that time versus the property's done that heavy lifting. The property market rewards action takers, decision makers. You guys looked at the market, jumped in at the right time, for example, away you go. I mean, Bernie, I'll jump to our commercial, and granted commercial is a different beast, for example, and we've got the valuation done on it being completed, but we've had that for a year and a bit, and that's gone up. I think it's revalued, the total site was revalued just over $1 million. What was the increase on that?
$1 million, so a 25% increase.
Yeah.
That's on an as if complete basis. And we own 50% of that. So it's that one. I'll just put little asterisk. I say a lot of blood, sweat, and tears going on in the background.
There's a different type of equity that's gone into it. It's tier equity that's gone into it. So I probably wouldn't recommend buying a site that needed a whole new base build and a fit out. That was self-inflicted a little bit for us. But I mean, when we went to revalue the property, 12 months later, again, the message here is we could not have saved that type of money in 12 months. So taking 2 properties as an example, we haven't even brought our home into the equation. I'm assuming that's, that we don't know where we live. That's seen an increase as well across the board. So for us, multiple properties doing heavy lifting versus how much we'd have to, and like many business owners, for us, let's just take an example, for us to earn an extra, call it $150,000 out of the business, that would mean maybe an extra team member, training, recruitment, onboarding, sweat equity to build a team member up, to get them revenue generating, to then eke out net profit at the end of that. That's a lot of work. And I see this time and time again with business owners. I say to business owners, for all the hard work you've put in, it's almost like Stephen Bradbury's with people buying property. They've just surpassed you, and their equity position on their properties, you've busted your absolute chops in your business. This country does not reward, I hate to say it, this country does not reward self-employed entrepreneurs. It values property owners.
And that's
a harsh reality.
It totally is. It's the truth. And it's evidenced by our tax system. So if you want to look at the truth to that, and I could go into this in depth, but I won't bore people with my tax advice. But you look at our negative gearing, you look at our CGT discounts for property versus if you sell a business, the tax discounts you get are nowhere near as generous, I would argue. And that's evidence in tax. So our federal government and the ATO are going, well, we want people to buy property. By their legislation, right? So you look at it from that perspective. You look at it from the supply perspective. You look at our immigration policies. We're bringing in more people into the country. We don't have enough supply. You can see that there is this cascading effect of like, you buy property, you will be rewarded.
The system is stacked for property owners, right? So, yeah, I tell this to business owners. I'm like, use your good income now to go and buy income producing assets. De-risk a little bit of your business risk, and it doesn't mean that you take your foot off the pedal from your business. It just gives you another source of income that you don't have to work, that it's earning income while you sleep. And we're living testament to that. We're putting our money where our mouth is. We're showing people that as well, doing it alongside our team as well, doing that for clients. And I think I've had a really good client that reached out going, we're looking for a broker who's like eager to grow and is growing themselves. So like, mate, you've come to the right place. I'm not tooting my horn here, but everyone on this team is leveling up. And that was the actual theme of our last financial year internally, was leveling up. And we only wanted team members that were happy to level up on a personal and professional level and a property level as well for those that could within our team. Right, Damien, do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that so many times I hear clients, we get so much business from people who've gone to other brokers and the broker says, no, you can't do it or it's too risky. When it's not their call. It's not a decision to make.
And that decision lies with the bank. So the broker's role is to present the loan to a bank to get it approved. The bank has credit. Now, we play within the lines of compliance, which banks we can and can't, for example, but our role is enablers.
Definitely. Look, and this is, there's our compliance. The bank also has to pass it through their compliance. So if a bank says yes to a loan, everything's been ticked off. It's squeaky clean. It's ready to go. And there's so many different banks, so many different policies, so many different borrowing options that for a broker to say, oh, it's too risky for you, when a bank would say yes, well,
they're projecting their own insecurities is what I usually find. Their own limitations. And that's not limited to brokers. It's limited, that goes to the financial planners. It goes to the accountants that just go, nah, I don't. I mean, we had one accountant that said, why are you using a buyer's agent to a client? I was like, mate, that's not your call to make. If the client wants to do it, you're there to enable and support them on their journey, right? Or another one said, why would you pay mortgage insurance? Mate, that's what they need to do or want to do. So I guess, to me, I often question the team. I say to everyone, we're not perfect, but our advice and our guidance comes from a place of love and support. So to me, if you're listening and if you just pull up your last, notice of tax assessment or your tax return and go, right, how much hard work went into that? How many hours did I work after hours? How many weekends did I work, for example? And you may love your job, and I definitely am happy if you love your job and your vacation. But just think, could life be a little bit easier if I earned a $50,000, $100,000 increase in my property, and that then becomes a leverage to go and buy the next investment property, and suddenly it's piggybacking an investment property portfolio that's increasing in value that you could then potentially sell down at some point, reduce your mortgage, or you hold on to that and that becomes your part of your retirement game plan as well. And I think that's what we wanted the focus is this topic to be, because I say high income earners that are on some good wickets, say it again, time and time again. All it takes is a flick of a pen and you find yourself on the receiving end of redundancy. You might get a payout, but roles at that top end of town don't really fall on your lap. You've got to sing for your supper. You've got to go for multiple interviews. It'll lock you out of the property market, which means you've missed opportunities. How do you stay active in the property market? I think you got to have skin in the game. You got to be constantly buying. You got to have your team surrounding you going, what's my equity positions and what's my borrowing capacity as well.
Yeah, great point. I was just thinking then, like we've got these high income earners, like we see them, they don't act, and they don't,
because they don't have to act, Damien,
because they've got the money coming in,
right?
They got disposable income.
They're like, mate, I don't have to worry. The money's coming in.
Next paycheck, I get another $5,000
easily.
after expenses,
sort
of thing. Like these guys, look, we see the upper end of the spectrum. We see, like you said, all the spectrum, but we see the upper end. And I'm just thinking, like, because the advice is always when you go and invest, diversify. Like you get shares, get property, diversify your portfolio. When you talk to someone who's a high income earner who hasn't diversified their income, maybe that's the way to approach it, because it's like, yes, you've got income coming from one source, but like you said, what happens when you get fired?
Yeah.
Should you diversify your income sources? And that's through property. It could be through shares and dividends. It can be a few different things. But I think if you get that into their brain to be like, hey, you lose your job and that's it, the income stops coming in.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
And to that point, I often think because they're so entrenched in their work, and I say,
lose my job.
That absolutely but also they know that they know their company's P&L and they know their company's balance sheet back to front, but they don't know their own personal balance sheet and P&L back to front. And the amount of times I get clients and that work in finance, for example, or they're heads of ops at certain organizations. And they're like, mate, I don't even know what's going on with my stuff. I'm like, mate, if I asked you about where your company's budget is up to, how you're tracking month to date, year to date, for example, they'd know every single number that they're accountable for in their KPIs. But when it comes to their own personal balance sheet, they do not know what's going on. I'm like, that's a tragedy. You're giving everything and all your energy to your employer and you're not taking care of yourself. You are at risk. And the longer this goes on, you talk about that little 1% coming off track, for example, you're just off track month on month. If you go back over those years of loose, money just flowing out loosely, not knowing where it's going, for example, not investing that money wisely, for example, there are people on far lesser incomes that are actually doing far better than you. Like I'd be so offended by that personally. And I don't know how to make that penny drop, that connection for some people, particularly on good incomes, to go, you are the ones, and Ben Nash's book, I was talking to him the other day, why rich people need a budget the most. I was like, yes, absolutely. It's because there's actually more coming in. So they've got this, but there's more going out. Yeah.
So much coming out. Like, and seeing my income level up, I don't really monitor my banking statements anymore. Like, we have a pretty good budget. So I'll just start by that. Like, we are on top of it.
But you're not worried about tapping your card now and then no money on it.
So I tap pretty liberally, and I don't check my bank statements either. When I was paycheck to paycheck, or when I was budgeting to save for a deposit, I was looking at my bank account every day to make sure nothing came out. Remember, Nate, you and I did yours and you found all these subscriptions that you didn't sign up for?
Yeah. And I mean, I'm someone who still to this day doesn't check their bank account. There was this cycling subscription or cycling magazine coming up for like 10 months. Yeah. And I'm like, what is this?
$20, $30 a month. And he goes, I don't know what that is. Yeah. And it must have been a scam. They must have got his details. But yeah, so like those habits you lose once you've got enough money, because you don't have to worry about it as much. And it's time consuming. But, if you let it go for too long, suddenly you're signed up to 10 cycling magazines.
Which is definitely, I think, something that whether you're an individual, single, or you're in a relationship, really solid money hygiene. And I don't know, that sounds really, really just not pretty. I don't know, we need to jazz it up a bit, ACD. But how do you manage your money for your household? Do you check your bank statements once a month? Do you have buckets in place? And what is that rhythm that you guys have? And the Barefoot Investor talks about date nights. You can do that. But
financial date nights.
Financial date nights, specifically. In my household growing up, I would sit down with my parents every Saturday morning, finance Saturdays. Cup of coffee, breakfast, look at the mortgage repayments. How much do we need to pay off the mortgage by? So this was helping mum and dad pay off their home for retirement. And every Saturday we did that. And it was a rhythm in our household. And I remember Damien and mum and dad were there, and Aaron was there, and he was like, oh, no, I've got to go. You guys are talking about personal family money stuff. And we're like, no, you're a part of this family. Come sit, listen, like be a part of this. And if you have children as well, how are you talking about money in your house? Because if you are not talking about money, if you are not sharing those conversations about this is a mortgage, this is what it means, this is why mummy and daddy we have to go to work, this is what we're saving for. This is where it starts. We're not taught about money enough in schools. And it rules such a major part of our lives. So how can you be a wonderful money role model for your family to ensure that you aren't all stuck on that treadmill of sweat equity? That you continue to, sweat equity is super important, job, having purpose, all that stuff. But how do you also incorporate property equity into it as well?
Definitely. Yep. Buy property, buy investment properties. Tell your kids, I'm an investor.
Yes.
They will see that, they will hear that, and then they will mimic that when they get older.
Oh, Damien, I mean, the amount of times renting becomes a generational mindset.
Big time.
And imagine you never had a role model of, I don't know, someone going to uni in your family or... and so...
we grew up in a lower socioeconomic area. So I've got lots of friends who are in the renting cycle, generations of renters. And when I speak to them about some of the initiatives and policies that banks and governments have for people to get their first home, they're shocked. It's like I'm speaking a foreign language, or it's like a secret code that no one told them about. Obviously, it's public information. But if you're not told, you don't know. And if you don't seek it because you didn't think it's going to be available to you, it'll pass you by.
Oh, mate, correct.
And this is what this is all about. Like these podcasts, these are educational. We're just trying to scream to people like there are ways for you to better yourself financially through property, through investing.
That's what we say about all these podcasts. We might be preaching to the converted, and kudos if you already converted across. But we say the ripple effect gets bigger when you share this episode with someone that you know that needs to hear it. So if you know someone that's on the fringes and going, I'll never get into the property market. No, mate. Home buying's an attitude. You need to shift that attitude. You need to be around winners, for example. I've mentioned to plenty of people before, like the Australian Property Scout Summits, like something like that where you just go and you're around like-minded people. Bernadette mentioned before around where do you surround yourself with that. You need to surround yourself with people that have, one, been there, done that. Two, you need to try and find a team, and the team doesn't fall on your lap. You've actively got to pound the pavement to find the right team that's aligned to you, not a marketing funnel that you get sucked into. And then you need to get off your behind and do some work. And we see this time and time again, people that are building out portfolios. Yeah, mate, I'm sorry. You got to go get independent legal advice. Yeah, mate, I need that document witnessed by a JP. Yeah, mate, we're not going to take digital signatures for that. We need pen signatures. So you need to print out all these documents because it's, buying through a trust. These are privileges kept for the 10, 20, 30% of the population that go on to buy property, to go and buy investment properties, to scale up a portfolio. And that's what you need to sign yourself up for. And I've said it a few times, pressure is a privilege. So if you're in that position where you've got a bit of pressure on your back, think of it as a privilege as well. And with that, I want to wrap up by saying, we're getting so many wonderful clients that are reaching out, and listeners that are reaching out that want to start work with us and our team. I want to say thank you very much for the courage to reach out. People have been sitting on the sidelines listening for 6, 12, 15 months and saying, now I feel like I'm ready to reach out. So we're offering two types of engagements. One is what we call a property roadmap session. So that's if you're starting out your journey and you want to get into the market and just know what you can do to get in. That's what we call a property roadmap session. If you're already an investor, now you want to optimize your portfolio and scale up, we're talking about a portfolio review. And hit us up. We've got links on our website which will let you book in for one of those two sessions with a broker. Like I said, no judgment on where you're trying to get to, just enablement. And that's the name of the game. So I want to say thank you very much for tuning in. I hope this episode's been helpful. If it has, share it with a friend and spread the word and make that ripple effect get bigger. Thank you very much.